Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Matt Houston here, and today we're talking about the spell point variant rule for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So this way spell slots work is you can only use so many spells of that level within a certain time frame, typically a day, but depending upon the class that may vary a little bit. So if you have 4 first level spell slots, it means that you can use 4 spells of first level within however much time it takes for you to do a rest long enough for you to recover those. If you have only 2 second level spell slots or 2 third level spell slots, you can only cast the second level or the third level respectively 2 times. The spell does not matter necessarily of what it is of that level that you are casting, but you can only cast it of that level that number of times. Typically, this is then followed by a long rest that you need to take before you can use them again. There are some exceptions to this, such as the Wizard's Arcane Recovery, which we will get into later for the spell points, and the Warlock, whom has very small number of slots but can get them back on a short rest. Spell points, on the other hand, kind of remove the spell slots and just create a pool of points that you can pull from that whenever you want to cast a spell. The spell point variant rule works that you have a certain amount of spell points that you can pull from, basically the same, similar as a mana pool from your typical RPGs. And then each spell, depending upon the level of which that you are casting, pulls from that pool and subtracts that number down until the pool is gone. You still have adjusted casting levels. For example, the Ranger and the Paladin, you'll only gain half the number of points, or rather they gain points at half the level rate, as well as the Eldritch Knight and the Arcane Trickster only gaining 1/3, respectively. You are still restricted in the same way as you would be when casting spells of levels. For example, if you're playing a 3rd level wizard and you have 14 spell points, you can't cast a 9th level spell even though it only costs 13 spell points. You can only cast spells up to the appropriate level shown on the table, which is the same rate as it would be on spell slots, so there's not really much change there. The obvious big fear is, well, what does that mean for high level spells at late levels? Well, you can only cast 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells only once you have access to them. This does affect levels 19 and 20, as you are able to cast a second 6th level spell slot at 19, and 20th level spellcasters do get a second 7th level spell slot. You can, of course, just add an amendum to this rule set to allow for that, of course, if you wish, but overall, 19th and 20th level, you're dealing with very strange and extraordinarily powerful beings in the first place, and you could argue to remove restrictions in general at 20th level. So the obvious larger advantage is that you can get more mid-level spells out of this, 3rd, 4th, and 5th level spells specifically, as opposed to the 1st and 2nd. The big role that the 1st and 2nd level spell slots tend to play in games that go a little bit later is they end up becoming more of your utility spells or your immediate niche spells, such as Shield for the Wizard or Detect Magic. The stuff that you kind of always need, but you don't necessarily want to pull spell slots for, especially in the early game where your slots are limited. This allows for you to utilize them as spell points, allowing you to increase the number of spells that you have of higher level. Specifically, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. More often than not, the 3rd level spell slot is the one that concerns people. Alternatively, this does allow you to cast a lot more low level spells as opposed to higher level spells. The big caveat here, of course, is that you can cast Magic Missile at 1st level just as many times as you for the entire game if you'd like. It's not necessarily good, but it does mean that you can keep pumping them out as much as you'd like. 2nd level spells have always felt weird to me, that they always felt definitely stronger than 1st level, but so far weaker than 3rd that once you have 3rd level spell slots, you never really want to use 2nd level spells except for the utility that they have. And at that 5th level, 6th level, they feel really weird using them in that way. For example, at 3rd level, you actually have 14 spell points. Well, this actually means that you can cast 1st level spells up to 7 times, effectively giving you 7 1st level spell slots. The difference from this to the spell slot system is that you have 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. So you could argue that you get 1 more spell slot out of it, but they're all first level as opposed to 2 second level. The thing is, you can already upcast spells into higher slots anyways. Now, of course, there's people saying, well, what about spells that don't have an upgraded spell slot text? You just cast them at a higher level and that's it. It just means that you had to burn a more powerful form of magic in order to keep them going. This means that you are losing efficiency, but if you need that spell in emergency immediately right now, such as a shield spell, you've already burned all your first level spell slots, and you got a second level spell slot left, and you need the shield or you're going to end up dead, you probably would be willing to spend the second level spell slot just to ensure that you live. Third level spell slots are, of course, the thing that a lot of people bring up, which is, wouldn't that mean that they could use these more often? Technically, yes. But you can already use your 4th level spell slots for Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Haste, etc. Of course, these spells are incredibly potent even at 3rd level, much less trying to use them at higher levels. Now, the spell point system does give you an additional 17 spell points for the 1st and 2nd level spell slots. This is enough to cast 3rd level spells 3 additional times. And this does sound crazy, but you gotta remember, you're burning through a lot of spell points pretty quickly by doing this. This, of course, forces you to be much more narrow in your flexibility if you just spend your points like that. This does, of course, allow for greater flexibility in the use of your points, as you will be able to cast any spell in your repertoire that you have prepared at any time, so long as you have the points for it, which really, until you start running dry, you're always going to have the spell points. Overall, this does grant more flexibility on the casters, as they'll be able to cast the spell that they want, even if they don't have the appropriate slot for it, and they don't have to worry about being inefficient by using a higher spell slot to cast a lower level spell. This in turn means that you have more options at all times, which may take some players longer to take their turns, though I don't find that to be the case necessarily with experienced players that know how to plan ahead and are willing to put a little extra effort in. I'm going to make sure that I have this in my back pocket later, this in my back pocket later. I'm going to set up my spells as though I only have so many shots with each thing within this pool and have my entire build ready anyways. It is a good idea to do this, just having the spells kind of listed out that you want to be able to cast within your set a certain number of times, just in case, and then have a certain amount on the side after that to put towards flex spells, spells that you need possibly in the pinch that you might need them. The few extra uses that you probably will get out of 3rd level spell slots by not having to use your seconds as much as the slots would have, or your firsts as much as the slots would be, or being able to use your 4th level spell slot, amount worth of points as a 3rd level spell slot and have a couple more left over just so that you can allocate them elsewhere to get a slightly better spell in a different spot, really isn't going to increase the number of spells that you can cast of certain levels too much. So there is, of course, the question of the wizard's arcane recovery, because it's based on a number of spell slots equal to 1/2 their level, which doesn't really work out mathematically with this point system, because if you were to go 20, so say we're at 20th level, that means that you get 10 spell slots worth of points back into your pool. Well, if you go 10 first level spell slots, you get 20 points. If you were to go 2 5th level spell slots, you only get 14. The reason for this is because of the way that spells cost in the pool system. Now, of course, with well over 100 spell points, you're not going to miss 6 points too much, but that is a 4th level spell slot. So it isn't insignificant per se, but I highly doubt you're going to run yourself that dry at that point. So in order to fix this, I rule that you just recover the number of spell points equal to your level. It's simple. It's easy to remember. You just look at your class level. There's lots of other class abilities that do something similar to this, and you just recover that many spell points into your pool during a short rest. Yes, this is slightly better than the spell slots at that point, but honestly, again, this is going back to the same thing of being able to cast an extra third level spell or two is not going to affect the game too drastically, especially when you consider that you have to ration your spell points. A good DM is going to capitalize on the fact that you are just, going gun-ho with third level spell slots right away, and you have no spell points left after, one fight. You're going to get punished for it if there's a second fight down the way. Or if you immediately sit down for a short rest, who's to say that somebody doesn't show up and interrupt it? These are some of the tools to make for the DM to make sure that you don't do this. Dungeon Masters make things more interesting for your players by forcing them to ration their spell points. I find myself ending days regularly with spell slots still sitting in my character's repertoire at all times once I hit 5th level. Not because I'm just spending 3rd level spell slots. In fact, I usually don't even take Fireball or Lightning Bolt my first level at 5th level. I usually take it at 6. Just because I like utility spells more. Weird, I know. But I find that I have a 2nd level spell slot or a 1st level spell slot left over regardless, simply because I'm making sure that I have options at the end of the day for when something terrible happens. So my final opinion on this, it's a good variant rule. I actually really, really like it. If you prefer a spell point system, use a spell point system. If you prefer a spell slot system, use a spell slot system. Both are extraordinarily good and pretty much the same in regards to flexibility, availability, and limitations. Such as ends this video. Thank you so much for watching. Do leave a comment on the troll's nest on the underside of this video and tell me what your thoughts are on the spell variant rules. I think they're great. If you like them, if you don't like them, say why. Like this video if you did. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss another video. And until next time, guys, have a good day.